This is SHTF Prep Guy on part 2 of my personal defense video. In part 1 we discussed that the only true weapon is the human brain with the intent to do harm to another. As with all my videos, please watch the video number 1 first, the intro. Over that I go over a lot of situations and a lot of issues involved in things like using force or doing things that in a non-shit hit the fan situation would be considered breaking the law. Unless there is a complete societal collapse, a complete collapse of the infrastructure, and unless things are so bad that if you call 911 you cannot get an officer or assistance from the fire department, and unless that is the case, then this stuff in this video and just about any other video that you see called SHTF or WROL, World Without Law, is inappropriate and can and should get you thrown in jail. Now, if that's out of the case, part 1 of my personal defense video, we talked about the human brain being the only true weapon. In this video, we're going to discuss something that happens quite often in people when they're involved in a violent situation or a potentially violent situation. That is freezing or panic. Something we've all done. Sometimes you might start to drop a glass of water and you see it falling and you think, hey, I should get that, and then it hits the ground and you froze for a second. You knew you should have done something, but you're just taking a second to compute, I'll do a try. It happens. It happens to everybody. One common place that people freeze is in violent situations. Oftentimes, a soldier, seeing his first combat, will hesitate for a few seconds before returning fire, even if he's taken fire. Brain freezes. It happens. There are things that we can do to prepare ourselves mentally so that we are less likely to freeze in that sort of situation. One of these involves thinking about violent situations ahead of time, making mental, I will call them lines. It's a line in the sand that cannot be crossed, or if they do get crossed, then it is appropriate to take violent action to protect yourself or to protect the loved one. I'm going to give an example here. If an intruder is in my house and I can see at a quick glance that they have a weapon, then I will shoot them or strike them with an object. I will take any and all means necessary to protect myself and to protect my family. If an intruder is in my house and I do not see a visible weapon, but my children are home, I will shoot them or strike them. I will not wait to find out whether they have a weapon or not. Another potential scenario. If an intruder is in my house and I do not see a weapon at all, and my children are not home, in that case, I might take aim at them and yell, stop, get out of here, but I am not going to shoot first and ask questions later. As you see, intruder in the house stayed the same, but whether or not my children were in the house made a difference in my actions. Whether or not that person had a visible weapon changed my actions. It's important to think about things like this and define what is that line that if it gets crossed, you will meet violence or a potential for violence to yourself or to your loved one. What is that line? And define it ahead of time. If it's predetermined, I know that I have defined those lines ahead of time. So if I see an intruder in my house, I don't have to think, I don't see a gun. Should I yell at him to get out? Should I what? I've predefined in my mind, I've predetermined that my course of action is going to be, if I don't see a weapon and my children are not in the house, I'm going to take a potential risk to myself and announce my presence and tell them to leave. But if my children are home, I will not do that. And that's just a personal decision of mine, because I feel that there's no words in the world to describe how much I would rather go to jail for the rest of my life than to have one of my kids be buried. And that's a personal decision I make. And I'm sure most parents probably feel the same way. But having those predetermined lines drawn, those lines in the sand, those mental lines drawn, that if they get crossed, I know what action to take. It helps. It helps not think, well, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. Oh, I don't know. I don't want to get in trouble. But what if the what ifs will kill you? They will literally kill you in a potentially violent situation. Again, most of the stuff in these videos is when 911 is not available, in a collapse of the infrastructure type environment. Anytime you can call 911 and get assistance, even with a violent situation, it's usually better to go that route. That would be my advice to you. So this and every other video like that, SHTF type video, just remember, if it's not a SHTF situation and you act as if it is, you can and probably should go to jail. That being said, so we've discussed ways to prevent yourself from freezing by pre-envisioning potential scenarios and making a decision ahead of time what you feel constitutes an okay time to meet potentially deadly force with deadly force. We've also discussed the one weapon philosophy, where the human brain is the weapon. Anything else that you might employ, be it a fist, a gun, a knife, a ballpoint pen, is a tool. You're using it as a tool to harm somebody else because you have perceived that you are going to be greatly hurt or killed if you don't. But now that we've talked about that stuff, there are tools that are available that are more effective than other tools. In prepping, the first thing when you decide you're going to start prepping, go out, buy yourself a case of bottled water. These I buy for $2.59 for 24 half-liter bottles. Case of bottled water, $2.50 or $2.60. Very inexpensive, something you should always have on hand. Under $5. The next thing you should buy is some sort of firearm, if it is legal for you to own one. Quick trip to the gun shop. Past Saturday, I had a few hours to spare and nothing to do, so I went around to a few local gun shops. And at the third one, I was kind of in the market for a .22 long rifle anyway, and I wound up picking up this rifle for $80 with a box of premium ammunition for it. So, not a huge investment. I literally paid less than $85, including tax, out the door for the rifle with the scope and a box of ammunition. And you can do that in most places in the country. Where I live, guns regularly sell for a little over the MSRP for new guns. Even used guns sometimes sell for as much as the MSRP on a new gun. Just happens to be that they're very high where I live. But, as you begin prepping, you make decisions. You might not go out to eat as much. You might rent a DVD instead of going to see the movie when it's in the theater. These are decisions that you make because you're trying to plan for the future. You're trying to plan for a time when things might not be so good. And quite honestly, food is a great investment. Especially canned food, bottled water. It's something you're going to use anyway. If you were to lose your job, having a month's worth of food stacked up in the pantry is a good thing. And even if you don't lose your job, having a month's worth of food stacked in the pantry is a good thing. It helps you make decisions. Well, You know, I want to buy this, but then I won't have money for groceries, but I do have a few weeks worth of food stored up, so I'm okay. I can make that other purchase I wanted to make, and firearms generally tend to be one of the best investments you can possibly make. Most firearms that were sold in, say, the 1920s, even if they've been used, well used, but just routine maintenance on them, clean them, take 5 minutes to clean it after you fire it. Most weapons that have been sold in the 20s for, say, $20 to $30, that same weapon is now, that same firearm is now worth, you know, at least 10 times what it was purchased for. It's very routine to even buy a new firearm and be able to sell it a few years later for as much as you paid for it. And in often cases, you can buy a used firearm and sell it for more than what you paid for in a few years. Great investment, so you're not really risking anything there. My next few videos, we're going to discuss different types of firearms, what constitutes a good firearm for a shit-hit-the-fan situation, and some of the things you really need to think about in that sort of a situation, especially ammunition availability, ammunition compatibility, ammunition popularity, and the ability to carry many rounds of ammunition on you if you have to bug out. You know, some firearms are absolutely wonderful, but they take large, heavy ammunition. You might only be able to carry 50 rounds on your body, where other types you might be able to carry 1,000 rounds, in which it's a balancing act. So that's what we're going to talk about in my next video. Again, as always, things in this video, things in my other videos, and on other SHTF videos, do not do at home, that they are not to be employed unless there is complete infrastructure breakdown. If it's possible and you have a situation, call the police. Alright, thanks guys. Bye.